in setting down the heavy lifting, and in claiming your peace as a non-negotiable right. We are building the infrastructure for impact. A collective space where the diaspora can find tools, community, and the unshakable permission to slow down, process, and thrive. Your healing is not a luxury, it is the foundation. Join the movement. Let's build a softer, stronger tomorrow together.
Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to Black Mental Health Matters, and we're going to be opining on workplace stress and burnout. Whew, tough topics. Before we get started, and I apologize for everyone out wherever you all are. We might have some technical difficulties navigating this technical space, but before we get started, I would like to allow this space, allow us to be able to introduce each and other, be able to introduce yourself. So I'm getting so tongue-tied, moving, all this culmination just happening all at once. So whoever would like to start to introduce themselves, this wonderful, just this collab of Black brilliance. The floor is yours.
Ladies first.
Oh, yes.
I'll go first. I am Corinna Young. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm also the owner of Hues of Healing Therapy. And on socials, I'm the paid therapist bestie, where I provide therapist insight, but with bestie vibes. So that's who I am.
Yes. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Erlange Elisme. I'm a behavioral health consultant. My background is social work. I have a doctoral degree in social work with advanced trauma-informed care, leadership and practice specialization from Berry University, and also global mental health, trauma and recovery from Harvard Medical School. It's a certification. I own Elisme Consulting Services. It is a behavioral health consulting. We do not provide therapy, but we do work with people who are burnout, especially organizations such as education, healthcare, and nonprofits.
So glad to be next. Sorry, Doc.
That's okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lesley Scott. I am a licensed master social worker. Currently, I am the founder of Life with Les Concierge Social Work Services. So on socials, I am Les Renee, LESRENA. I enjoy connecting and helping Black people heal. So if you need my services, please let me know.
Awesome. I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Ebony, aka the Ebonizer. I'm CEO of Music Evolve International and Ebonize Me. I'm an entertainer and certified speaker and certified emotional intelligent coach. So what I do is I use entertainment to help people navigate, recognize their feelings, but also teach them how to manage and convey their feelings effectively.
Is it everybody? 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 Okay. Well, hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rachel. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, you did say ladies first. That's all. So.
Well, that's why I kept saying everybody go, and everybody's just kept silent. I was like, oh, okay. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. And it's so great to hear about all the work that y'all are doing. My name is Rachel Johnson. I go by Rachel J. I'm a therapist, an organizational consultant, leadership coach, professor, author, and the founder of Half and Half Holistic. I'm also now a PhD candidate at Clark Atlanta University. So I'm so happy to be here with you all to talk a little bit more about the research that I'm doing specifically in this intersection. So thank you all for having me today.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Dr. Joan Samuels-Dennis. I am a psychotherapist specializing in trauma recovery. I own Becoming Institute, where we train nurses and allied health professionals to do psychotherapy. It's good to be with you.
Okay, is the coast clear? Okay.
So it's clear.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kurt Lamarr. I am a actor and an educator. I work presently at various schools, such as Morehouse School of Medicine. I'm a simulated patient, a patient actor, where I work with nursing students, pharmacy students, physician assistant students, and I'm just so glad to be here and around all this excellence.
Yes, yes. Black excellence, Black brilliance indeed. And I am your host, Dr. Deonte Carter. I am a co-author to the Diara movement, basically the Diara project, which is diversity issues and anti-racism application at Malone University. It was something to where it was just a lot of racial tension in that specific university. So I wanted to create a space for Black brilliance to illuminate, for Black excellence to flourish. And so I'm happy to be you all's host today. So let's get everything started. So my first question to you all is, does the Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, and other services provide health, mental health, physical health, time off to be basically structured for mental health, physical health today for our diaspora? What are your all's thoughts on that? What do you all think? What do you all think we need to improve? What all do we need to sustain from FMLA?
Can I jump in? Because I literally had a recent battle with FMLA. I think in most circumstances, FMLA could be beneficial. There's a lot of red tape for accessing that in the workplace. For me, I worked for a smaller company, so that was not an option for me. So that is what led me again to I talked about this the last time I was on here. I resigned effective immediately because they kept telling me, "Oh, this isn't something you can have." So, okay, I got to do what I have to do for my mental health. So, me not being able to access FMLA, not able to access, those leave options to, take a break to get my mental health in order, it caused me to leave a full-time job. So, it is good if it works, but for a lot of us who don't have that option, I believe there should be something else to kind of fall in line, so to provide, so there's no gaps in care.
It helps me to think that there may be things on paper, but that does not mean they are accessible. For many of us, we would not be able to take a long time without pay, and that's what the FMLA, I'm saying it in French, FMLA does. It technically give you the time, but to access it is different. But also to be able to afford staying home is another issue that we need to look into.
And I want to piggyback too that I've had clients where I've had to assist them in this, or even tell them like, "Hey, you need time off," but them going through the proper channels and still being denied, that further creates stress and trauma when they're doing the right things, and it's still like, this is not enough, or we don't feel like this is justifiable. And then it almost kind of makes me feel as a therapist like my hands are tied. It's like, I know you need this, you need this, but there are powers above us that are determining that your mental health is not really important, especially for us. Our pain already is like not really listened to. So I definitely see the red tape in all the things that go into this resource, but it's really not a resource in a way sometimes.
I'll speak from the Canadian perspective because we don't have FMLA here in Canada. But what I want to say is, I think there's always a starting point that we have to jump into. And I mean, this is kind of historic, right? Just the idea of being able to recognize that there is a need, especially when you're going through therapy or when you're going through something rather difficult, to be able to remove yourself from that circumstance. And then, what you gain is a bit of psychological distance. And what you also gain is a bit of psychological safety. So I think it's a good start from my understanding of what, my very brief overview of what it is and what it offers, and a beginning point where now there's always the need to refine policies. There's always the need to see what policies are created that have blind sides or blindness with them, because they may not recognize that there are certain things that are actually disadvantages within them. So I think as we begin to talk about some of the disadvantages that this creates, or some of the blindness that is there and not seeing certain people that need to be considered as part of this, then this is where we can potentially impact those who've made the decision about what this policy looks like in the first place. So I celebrate you for having a policy in the first place. Is it optimal? Is it the best? Well, let's move it to the next level. But I would say that you're farther ahead than we are, because we do have the opportunity to take a leave. And it is usually a paid leave under WSIB, is what we call the organization here. And then you're covered for a certain period of time under short-term, long-term, and then eventually a more permanent disability if that's what you need. So those are just my initial thoughts with a very basic understanding of the policy.
What are your thoughts, Kurt?
Well, I've really never experienced FMLA, so that's why I didn't really want to talk about it, because I don't like talking about things I'm not really comfortable with, right? I haven't experienced that. So I'm going to just sit back and listen to this particular response to the question, and then we'll move on.
Totally understandable. Unfamiliar landscape. It's different strokes for different folks, so totally understandable. We'll move on to the next question. What are some coping strategies to help alleviate burnout? Oof.
Wow.
I want to step into this as well, and kind of piggyback off the last question. I think that, especially in the workplace, I think a lot of times mental health becomes a blurred line. My corporate background is in sales, so everybody knows sales. You be stressed out, right?
Yes.
KPIs and metrics. Then you hit that, and they say, "Okay, you need to do better next time," and then you didn't hit it this month, and then it's just like this ongoing stress. And in conjunction with that, I'm in the music industry, which is stressful within itself. And so a lot of times I believe that employers don't recognize the power of mental health, mental wellness. And I think that leads into I won't say take FMLA seriously, but I think that we need a better implementation of it, right? And one of the things that's why I became certified emotional intelligence, because look, I'm stressed out. I had to convey this to you so we could find a resolution before I start going crazy, right? So I think that's a big thing is, for me, it's like, let's recognize that mental health is real, right? Mental wellness is important, and teaching your employees, right, the benefit of emotional intelligence. And basically, emotional intelligence is being aware of how you're feeling and able to not only manage it, but to convey that and to provide a resolution for it as well. And so I always say, I have this framework. It's lead, listen, engage, adapt, and deliver. A lot of us don't listen. We like to hear ourselves talk, right? Especially in the workplace, right? But you have to be self-aware and to be able to also listen to the others, right? To your coworkers, or your manager, and really listen to what they're trying to say so you can come to a resolution. So that's why I believe emotional intelligence, especially within the workplace, is very important.
I agree, Ebony. I mean, you opine on a powerful point. Actively listening. That is a strategy that should always be implemented. The empathetic, active listening. The business model doesn't really hold space for that in corporate world, corporate spaces, whether it be America, what have you. So it's something that should be heavily encouraged. It should be something bolstered into these spaces of corporate worlds globally, not just the no, not just certain pieces and components. So yeah, that you bring up a good point, but yeah, all in all, that the coping strategies to alleviate burnout. What are some strategies for anyone that has a background in mental health, or has something has a lot of uh, valuable input for anyone that's dealing with something that is pretty arduous. I mean, there's when it comes down to our diaspora, we deal with a lot in the
Mhm.
Yeah.
workplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think
I
sometimes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, quickly for me, um, I think showing up is a coping strategy. Continuing to show up for yourself, advocating for yourself is a coping strategy. I believe, that emotional intelligence piece is crucial. But a lot of people don't have that. So, regardless of that, how can our employers do better by their employers, by their employees, and making sure that their mental health is actually being considered in a lot of ways. My ultimate coping strategy for burnout, I used to work for the state of Alabama. I did foster care for 5 years. I've done a lot of hard social work jobs. I have to leave. When I get to a point of burnout, for me, there's no point, there's no return. It's time for me to move, shift, pivot, whatever that is. Hey, the house is already burning. I'm getting out to save myself. So for some people, that coping, hey, me and my resume, we finna hit the streets and I'm out of here. So removing yourself is
Yeah.
also a coping strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eh,
Uh,
and that is, oh, you
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. That is the lane that I'm running now. And I hear a lot of people when they talk about burnout, they want to talk about the individual. In my opinion, and what research seems to support, it's not an individual issue, it's a systemic issue. So, me doing some wellness thing is good because I need to continue to take care of myself. But what are we doing? If I have this cup and it's filled, I can put water in it. What will happen? It will overboard. It will not hold the water anymore because we need to talk about capacity when we're talking about burnout. And capacity, for instance, Lesley work in foster care. I did some foster care work through the school system. When there is no capacity, there is no capacity, and I could meditate my way out, it's not going to help. So what I often suggest is to look at the early signs. The irritability, the things that do not show up in the metrics, and forgetfulness, you know, um, dissociation. How do you work even in your family? Do you dread going? Do you sit in the car for about 10 minutes? So those are the things that we need to start paying attention to. Then we can intervene. Then and also we need the system to understand what it does to us.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, and that's one of the reasons why, I think there are some tangible coping skills, right? Like we definitely need tools that are going to help us get through stressful moments, right, to survive the system. But coping skills cannot be another way, like to help us tolerate harmful
Mm,
environments, right? And so oftentimes burnout and stress is not even a proper diagnosis for a
Mhm.
system that is requiring sacrifice, for a system that requires you to um, oftentimes people are really doing core value work, right? This doesn't align with my values, the work that I'm doing. I'm being bullied at work. My supervisor
Mhm.
is speaking to me disrespectfully. I'm being expected to walk it. So I think that oftentimes the conversation about burnout and stress it's a way to pacify, I think, what's really happening in our
mhm.
organizations, right? And so burnout and stress is absolutely real. And when we want to talk about that, coping skills are a great way to manage that. Getting into therapy, taking some breaths, regulation, all of that is great. But that is actually not going to become the answer or the antidote to something much larger and much deeper. Some of the things that we've normalized in our workplaces, the leaders that go unchecked, right? The policies and procedures that nobody seems to follow until it is convenient for them to follow them, right? The nice, nasty, passive aggressive things that we have to navigate, the racial microaggressions that we come up against, the people speaking, that's not burnout and stress. Burnout and stress is an individual problem. That is something
Hmm.
else, right? And so, like, I feel like even acknowledging that, addressing it, calling it what it is, validating the harm that's embedded in the systems, telling leaders that they're not showing up as good leaders. I think asking employers to consider mental health when in fact they are the ones that are creating harm is contradictory, right? And so I think that when we talk about workplace stress and burnout, sometimes I'm working people to diagnose really what is the issue. Because if I believe that is something wrong with me as an individual, and I'm having a hard time showing up at work, and I'm having a hard time like navigating a caseload, when in fact it is actually something much larger. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that it's an individual issue. It's something wrong with you. You just can't keep up. You can't keep up with your caseload. When in fact, there's some core belief stuff that's in. We have to do some reckoning with the system, right? And sometimes the biggest tool that an individual can learn is how to properly diagnose, not create this self-doubt, right? And to advocate for themselves, to speak up for themselves. Sometimes that is what needs to happen. Sometimes we're teaching clients to survive a harmful system because right now they don't have any other choice, right? And sometimes we have the ability to work with the organization and the leaders and hopefully the fields that then allow these things to continue. We've normalized this thing to be able to give you on a call today to say, this is workplace trauma or workplace stress and burnout. And it really is something much layered and much deeper. And we are like participating in organizations, even the mental health field that we're in, that is actively harming ourselves and the people that we're hoping to serve,
Yes.
because we have this embedded core belief that we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves
Hmm.
somehow in order to do good work. It is that core belief that allows the rest of this stuff to exist and not go and goes unchecked.
Yeah.
Ooh, Rachel.
And I want to
Rachel,
say, Rachel,
she just preached. She
I'm
preached.
sorry, that's
Okay.
literally why I was forced out of my position. And it happens to a lot of us, a lot of Black women where we take a lot in the workplace because we're strong, right? But we take a lot and a lot, and our needs aren't. Again, it goes back to individual. Well, what are you doing on your end? How can you manage your caseload better? How can you do things better on your end? No, everything is systemic, and it's for that way by design, and that's for a reason. So if we're not ready to burn down the systems that keep us in a corner, hey, we're just chatting. There needs to be some more
Yes.
pressure on these agencies, these organizations, these corporations. You got to take care of your people. But again,
Yeah.
we know as Black and brown folks, hey, we're disregarded. We're always at the bottom. So they're not going to do anything. So where do we as employees, how do we navigate those systems where there's not going to be no change? It would be hopeful that, with advocacy and, all of this work, things will change. Historically, things have never changed for us. So where do we go?
Yeah, I would like to say this, Lesley and Rachel, y'all preaching. I mean, you hit on some things that really touched my heart, right? I was in a position where I was still in my 90-day probationary period, and this position, we had people leaving out like a revolving door, right? And so I was pretty much led to believe that my skills were being questioned, my competency, right? And so I had a micromanager. There was a lady who was training me. It was very rude. Several people witnessed this lady being rude to me, went back to my supervisor to say, hey, we don't like the way so-and-so's talking to Kurt. But they were real cool, so she didn't want to address it. So she kept saying, well, I'm going to let them work it out, right? So I'm coming to work every day. I'm stressed out. And so I got to a place where I ended up coming to work and I ended up having a mini stroke right at the hospital. I worked at the hospital.
Wow.
Right? So I'm in the hospital for 6 days. Blood pressure is 200 over 101, right?
Oh
And
my.
I ended up going into counseling. I had a therapist, and he basically said, Kurt, what could we do to kind of help you get back into the swing of things? I said, I need to leave that job. I said, because it's really stressful, right? And so then I was faced with the reality of if I leave this job, how am I going to pay my bills? And a lot of employers, they use fear baiting as a way to keep us in check, right? It's kind of like, you want this job, right? And then there's this concept or this thing called insubordination when it's one-sided. It's just like, well, when you disrespect me or what I perceive as disrespect coming from my fellow employee or the one I'm supervising, then, you can't do that. But if I disrespect you, what do we call that? What do we call that? Right. And so there's this one-sidedness. And then we have all of these lofty mission statements. We talk about workplace, balance, but a lot of things are written in paper as a way to kind of like anesthetize the situation, right? When in reality, are we really practicing what we have written down in our mission statement? Right. So again, Lesley and Rachel, I feel you. You're definitely saying some things that we really need to talk about. So one of my coping mechanisms was quitting that job, and it was very difficult for me to do that, but my mental health was at stake, and I was sick. Right. And so my thing is sometimes we have to really evaluate, excuse me, whether or not this situation is really worthwhile, staying in it. Right? Because are we putting ourselves at risk for staying in the situation because we are afraid we won't be able to pay our bills? I look at it like this, sometimes we have to make that rough or hardcore decision to say, hey, I got to back off of this. And that's what I did. But I'm still here. I'm still alive. Bills are still being paid. So
Yeah. And workplace disguises burnout with the actual arcane hidden problem, the system that is built around it that wasn't built for our diaspora. Point blank, it's not set up for Black people. Point blank. And they continue to try to integrate and say that this is this and DEI dismantled. And there's just so much packed into them basically putting it in a box and saying, this is burnout. So this leads me to my next question. What are aspects of your work are you creating? Let me make sure I got this right now. So what are aspects of your work that you are creating that contribute to the most stress right now, and how are they affecting you emotionally, physically, mentally?
I'll go. So being a solo practitioner, it's just me. I'm the bookkeeper, I'm the CEO, I'm the therapist, I'm everything under the sun, right? And so there becomes a certain level of pressure that comes with that, right? So if I don't see a client, that means I'm not getting paid. So sometimes, even if I'm not feeling well, it's like, oh my God, like I don't feel well. I want to show up for myself, but also this other person is depending on me at the same time. And so I think as we talked about, people were talking about capacity and capabilities. I'm learning to separate capacity and capabilities.
Mhm.
I am just because I'm capable of doing something does not mean that I have the capacity to do that.
Amen.
And so I'm also practicing what I preach with my clients. Like if I'm telling them, hey, you need to take time off, or hey, you need to check in with yourself first before you take care of somebody else, I have to practice that. And so I think there's a certain level of stress that just comes with being an entrepreneur and all that stuff too. But that stress cannot override my values, and it cannot override who I am as a person at the end of the day. And so that's where I'm at with that. So, and that's the day-to-day practice as well. Some days it's good, some days it's not so great. But I think that as long as I'm staying in alignment with my own values and knowing that nothing works unless I'm well, that keeps me aligned with everything else.
I want to piggyback off on that. Two things I learned coming from sales and being an entrepreneur, especially in the entertainment industry, is boundaries and systems. I need to have boundaries, right? I remember when I was in sales and I used to start at 8 o'clock in the morning and don't get home till like 9 or 10. just trying to hit those goals, trying to hit those KPIs. And what was it was doing, it was I wasn't showing up for myself, showing up for my family, started seeing it in my health, blood pressure, all of these things because I was trying to be the best salesperson. I needed to, get this bonus because I had to pay these bills. And I had to, and I just kept running until my body just broke down. And I said, you know what? I need to set some boundaries. So if I'm coming here at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm leaving at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Because with sales, I was primarily on commissions. And so for me, it's about having those boundaries and knowing where my limits are and not pushing myself to the point where I'm getting myself sick and I'm not going to be good for myself or for others. So boundaries and processes and systems. Being an entrepreneur, as Corinna was saying, we're everything. We the marketer, we the salesperson, we the CEO, we the trooper out there. Shoot, I be passing out flyers too, right? But the thing is that how can I systemize this where I'm freeing up my time, but increasing my revenue and doing the things that I need to do? And so I think that really having boundaries and processes and systems in place, it really helps alleviate my mental health, but also my stress, so I can be better and just focus better as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to. So the original question is asking us about a challenge that we're navigating currently that's bringing us stress, Dr.
Correct.
Carter.
Correct.
Okay. People. I feel like managing people is always causing me stress. I feel like, but that's people work is the hardest kind of work because people are dynamic. You can't ever really test for. You can put in a formula online and there's a level of certainty. If you're an engineer, like there's some kinds of work that maybe you can, but the people are the thing that is going to be most uncertain, whether you're doing heart-centered work, healing work, direct service work, it's all people. The system is people. People create the system. People uphold the system. The people we work with, the people we work for. And I wanted to comment earlier. I think it's actually funny because my entire career has been in Black facing and Black serving organizations, and it don't get no better over there, right? And part of that is because we are so far away from our ancestral understanding of what leadership actually is. We are so far away from our understanding of what community care actually looks like that we seem to have separated those key pillars from our workplaces, and that is when we suffer, right? And so we are people across the diaspora that are used to working and living in our communities. At some point in time when that separation comes, it now feels like I have to compartmentalize or separate my core values from the work that I do. And it is in that contradiction that we feel levels of stress or like contradiction, right? And so I think that people are really interesting across the board. And I think it's one of the things that you all are talking about is I love the word systems, right? Because systems are whatever helps you kind of navigate or manage or balance your life better. And I'm really big on get somebody else to do it. Like I'm really big on get somebody else to do it, but they got to do it, right?
Yes.
Like, so then it creates
Yes.
this level of stress. And so it's like this like cyclical thing that continues, but it's the stress that I know that I bought into because I chose people work. I value people. I value community. So it's not that stress. It's going to be reoccurring stress. It's like stress that you knew that you were getting yourself into. It's like the symptom of doing the work. The symptom of community is that it will feel inconvenient. It will feel like you need to invest. It will feel like all your edges is coming out because y'all are stressing me out, right? But that is different than because I value that though, right? And so when I have those hard and difficult moments, I'm able to say, but this is the work that I chose or that I was chosen for, right? And so I'm able to reckon with that. When it gets outside of those, and I feel sacrificial, where I feel like the culture and climate in the workplace is hostile. That is different, right, than the work or the natural stress that comes with work. We could all probably agree that our work is stressful at some point in time. Stress itself is not bad. And I think that that's the thing that's important is like, do I get stressed out at work? Do I get stressed out being an entrepreneur? Do people pay us on time? Absolutely not. Right?
Woo.
All of those things are really stressful to me. And it's par for course. And I can design, Ebony said, a system around that because I already know it just is, right? The variable is the people. So yeah.
I think there's a lot of exploitation in our marketplaces today. You know, there's this whole concept of doing more with less. Excuse me. I've worked in environments where positions were shut down, or someone had left and they didn't replenish those positions or refill them, but then they'll take that position and they'll take all that work and they'll just pile it on to the present employees, right? With no extra pay, no extra compensation, you know. And then those of us who may have been on salary, you know, they really get a lot out of you when you're on salary, right? And so there's this attitude that, okay, I'm going to give you more work. But then if you say, hey, this is too much, then your competency is questioned. This is like, then your time management skills are being questioned, right? When the fact remains, it's like, I can only do so much within the time I have, right? And then you have these expectations where, you know, they're calling you or sending you emails when you're off the clock, but they expect for you to respond, you know, during a time where you're not at work, but they don't want to pay you for that time that they want you to check your emails, right? And so it's just these expectations that I believe that are just basically exploitive in nature, right?
I want to add on to that. Thank you for that comment. So, you know, I went from being the solopreneur psychotherapist to then building a corporation, which is a whole different animal to build. But as you're building a corporation, you have to take into account all of these elements that we're talking about right here. And the question I had to ask myself is, how do I ensure that as I'm trying to get the mission and the vision of the organization to a place where we're successful and it's realized, what type of employees do I need? And when there's an employee who suggests that they can perform, but then they show up and clearly they cannot perform, then how do you make a space psychologically safe for them to then enter into the space where they can perform well and then actually help you to drive your organization forward? So we've had to develop policies, but then you have to live your policies and embody your policies as well. And so, you know, I've had employees that, you know, as a psychotherapist, you realize they're freaking out, but like you just told them there was an issue and it's easily to be solved. But then the person psychologically makes that now a very unsafe space for themselves to be in. And then you find yourself then trying to be a therapist to an employee when in fact what you need is somebody who can actually recognize that they're afraid of something and it's not actually me. I recognize that there was something that needed to be developed in this person or something that needed to transition. Their belief system needed to transition. But then when you lay that out in front of a person, it's a very vulnerable place to be. And some people don't then sit with the vulnerability and process that. They go into a very reactionary mode. And again, you're in a psychotherapist kind of position when really what you need to be doing is just leading the organization. So there's this balance that has to be taken into consideration as you're dealing with people. I've actually had to say to an employee who was kind of like, I just made a very minor mistake. I didn't even point it out. They pointed it out. But then kind of spiraled into, I need to correct this. I need to correct this. I need to correct this. So ended up kind of sending me emails. And then finally I said to her, you know, I really am okay with what just happened. So if you're not okay with what just happened, you need to go and process this and then figure out what the real challenge is for you. And then once you've processed it and you're calm again, then tell me if we even need to have a dialogue, you know? And so because that person is a psychotherapist, they were able to do what I asked them to do. Finally step back into their place of comfort and come back to me and say, no one has ever done that before. No one, rather than, you know, the royal hammer coming down on me, no one has ever said, you can go and find your place of safety in your own life experience, but the lack of safety that you're feeling right now is not about me, right? So unless we can come to kind of a balanced place where I can set my policies, I know the way that I want to treat you as an employee. But if your fears are overcompensating in this situation, like, we need to be clear about it. So, the balancing of that is something to be managed. I tell you, it's a lion. It's a real
Yes.
animal. And so I think we just need to be in a balanced place when we have this conversation as well, because I think we're all trying our best, whether we're shades of white or black or anything in between. We're trying to do our best, but then how do you manage the emotion of the human? It's a very real thing. And so how do we process that without then racializing it, culturalizing it, locationizing it, all the things that we do. So I just present that as my own challenge that I've had to deal with, as I've moved through this process as well.
Yeah. Can I respond to that? That actually came up in a conversation I had with leadership before I ultimately ended up leaving my job. And I think when it comes to having a balance, I know I recognize my privilege in being able to, leave a job whenever. It's just me. I don't have no kids, no family. I am my own person to manage. When we talk about considering leadership, talk about considering our employer, I look at other people that I've assisted in my day to day. They don't have enough money to pay their bills. They don't have food to eat. They don't have means to make it through their month. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for us to have that expectation that people should just know how to process information. They should know how to kind of think of all sides when we're working with trauma, we're working in stressful environments. It's a lot of social workers in here. Hey, y'all know how hard this field is. It is like, it's a means of, do I sink or swim? Either I'm going to support me, I'm gonna let my clients down. Either I'm going to show up for myself. I'm not fulfilling my job duties. So I think, again, if we're talking about balance, I think the balance needs to be to employers. Hey, how can I make sure that my employees are able to, better care for their mental health, insurance, what avenues are available for our employees? What do I need to do? And I think, in the workplace, things with this time we're living in, all things impact us across the board wherever we are. So it's hard to hold that space for others when, I've been the employee and the employer. It's hard to find that balance when we've been on both sides, and we know how it is. So I think, again, the systems is all systemic. How can we knock these systems down so that we can better thrive in this world?
If we think about the ACEs, the study that was conducted in the 1990s, I believe, there are so many, 67% of college educated Anglo people experience at least one or two or more ACEs. So when we're talking about the people, even the therapists or the doctors or educators, we may have experienced some form of trauma. So when we present to any job, we present as ourselves. And this is what we talk about, not just writing policies, but also writing policies that are trauma informed. And look at what SAMSA talks about safety. Safety is not just the physical safety, but am I emotionally safe? Am I emotionally safe? What I heard from Dr. John, what you said, you gave that person permission to be safe for that moment. And that's what we need to think about when we are writing policies, when we are working with others, because we're going to present as human, just like Rachel said earlier. We are human beings, but we come with all of that experience that we've had. We come with that.
All right. All right.
And I like to think like I'm sorry, go for it,
Oh
Dr.
no, no, you got it, or you got it, Rachel. I was just gonna
Um,
agree.
I think that I come from the philosophy, I think that I take leadership as a very important task. I think that we have somehow and many of us, particularly if you're a Black woman, have probably fallen into a leadership position by crisis or by like, right. No one is really being trained to be leaders properly, right? And like, what do we think about when we think about leadership? Like, who do you think about? Like, there's a lot of things to digest there. We won't get into that today, but I think leadership saves lives. And I think there's a task of leadership. There is something that is required of us when we assume leadership positions, even if it's not CEO or director level title. I'm your therapist. There's a power that there's somebody placing their trust and safety in me. When I'm your employee, I'm placing my trust and safety in you, right? This concept of psychological safety. And Dr. Joan, what I heard is like, there's a task of you needing to do your own work and reckon so you can help somebody be able to say like, hey, that's because imagine that's flipped. Imagine it's my supervisor that's triggered. Imagine it's my director that hasn't done their work, right? Doctor, like imagine when it's flipped. And so I think one of the things that I encourage people to think about when I do organizational development work is that your leadership you can't push out the mission without the people. And I need people to be able to do the mission. So sometimes we in this capitalist world want this machine without the humanity, but we can't have both. Right. And so like people have to do this work. So I often hear people say we should just be able to get the work done. You can't get the work done without people, and people can't get the work done if they don't do their own work, right? And so like we continue to find ourselves very cyclically back into this like thing. And I believe there's a task of leadership. We don't get to show up as leaders and with our unresolved traumas, because that will show up in the workplace and harm someone else. We don't get to show up as leaders and think that we're going to sit across from clients and do direct service work, and we're triggered and we haven't been able to do, because that creates blind spots. It creates, right? And so like I believe that there is a key piece of leadership. Oftentimes if you hear anybody that needs to go to FMLA, anybody's talking about being burnt out, it is because they are stressed out about their environment. They are stressed. There's some supervisor, or there's some coworker, or there's another person. It's usually the caseload is one piece. Like the actual work is something to be considered. But oftentimes when people go over the edge, or they're considering needed to leave, it's because they are being treated. It's a relational issue, right? Because there's manipulation embedded inside of that, or because people are being passive aggressive, or because their leader is potentially participating in some very harmful decisions, and they may not even see that, right? And so I think leadership just requires us to show up while doing our work. We can't see other people, right? Dr. Joan, you can't see that in someone else if in fact you haven't done your own work to be grounded, to be regulated. You can't illuminate that for somebody else if you haven't done it for yourself. So I think it is very difficult work, but humanity is a part of this, right? And so I think that, I want to name capitalism as the core and the root of where we are and why we're here, because capitalism takes the humanity out of the system. But then humans show up in the system and say, wait, where am I supposed to fit? Right? Where does all my stuff go? And now all of us are tasked to try to figure that out. And it's not fair. But I think when we just embrace humans are, and they will come into this space with stuff, then we start to create policies that are trauma informed. Means human centered, right? It means that I'm looking at you as a full human with all of your stuff. When we start to build programs that are human centered, policies that are human centered, systems that are human centered, we we stop wrestling with these questions that we're having right now.
I think we also need to look at our training methodologies. There's a lot of what I call expedited training because of this urgency to get people up and running, especially if the department, is understaffed, and there's a stress that managers are basically saying, hey, we need to get you on board. I was questioned about, my competency. It's like, after my month, I think I've been there less than a month. I was brought in the office and said, hey, we don't think what we see on your resume is reflective in what we're seeing, in terms of real time. And so I just listened, and I just said, well, and she says, well, have you been reading the manual? They gave me this thick manual, but I have to answer phones. I was a patient relations rep. I had to go see patients. I had to document, summaries of individuals who were having complaints with doctors, and it was a lot of responsibility dealing with risk management. And so I had to answer phones, I had to go do my rounds. So I had all these expectations, but she wanted me to read this big manual. And I asked her, I said, well, when will I have time to read this big manual? And there are a lot of concepts that I really wasn't familiar with. And until I had the experience that I can relate to what was in the manual, it didn't make sense. So I'm going through all of this. And then we had this really lengthy, difficult documentation process that we really had to be on point. And so there was pressure where my supervisor, she was following me around. She would ask me, what can I help you with? And then when I would tell her what I was need of, she would bring this back to her supervisor and say, hey, he's not up to par. And then they would say, well, you're not doing this and doing that. So I told my director, I said, well, my supervisor is asking me, what do I need help with? But when I tell her that, that's the very things that she's using against me. And she's saying, well, he's not doing this. But I'm like, well, how can I feel comfortable and safe coming to you for help when you use the very thing that I'm telling you I need support in, as a way to say he's not doing the job, right? So I'm dealing with all this stress. And then one of my coworkers said, she was a weekend worker. She said, Kurt, you can call me if you need help. So I didn't feel comfortable going to my supervisor because she was using what I was saying against me. So I would contact my friend, my coworker, and she was off. And so my supervisor would come in and she would just always watch me. And she came in the office. She said, who are you talking to? Right. So I explained to her, I said, well, I'm talking to Miss Tanya. She said she can help me. I don't want you to do that. She's not working right now. So you should come to me. But when I come to you and I tell you what I need, you use that against me. So this was part of the stress that I was dealing with in this position. So, again, the training, it's just like, okay, a lot of people aren't really trained efficiently, but they're expected to they're expected to do the job in a superb way. They want the superwoman, Superman, right? But they're not giving us the platform and the resources necessary to put us out on stage where we can give a great show. That's for Ebony right there, fellow entertainers.
Ooh, that is, Kurt, that is heavy. That is, Dr. Joan, Rachel, Lesley, Kurt, bringing it tonight, to this morning here, at least here in Canton. But no, honestly, we have to understand and realize the realization of vicarious trauma. When we are talking and the power of transference and countertransference, and these are concepts that are very pivotal. And even when Dr. Joan, when you're speaking about developing a corporation, I know you probably have to have Dr. Kimberly Williams Crenshaw's concepts of intersectionality like on full rotation, thinking about how for the disability population, for women, for men, being able to create safe spaces and not have it be, and it's got to be dichotomous for that a certain situation, because you don't want to violate privacy, and it's all structured within a corporation, a business, an LLC. These are big concepts to have constantly playing in your mind, and that's arduous to think about within itself. So it's that important to be able to just have that trauma informed care and cognitive way of thinking around all of this, but then also to just saving that space, having that empathy, and being there for, because you're thinking at a micro then macro level when you're thinking about all of these different concepts. So since we're getting like very close to the end, very, very close to the end, we got to do a part 2 of this, absolutely, because our culture, our diaspora needs those Dr. Jones, those Rachels, those Leslies, to be able to just amplify the level of importance of how policies need to change. Systems need to be broken down and restructured. It is just that much important. So without further ado, how can everyone follow each and every one of you all on multiple platforms, websites, what have you? Because I feel like I feel like you all are such a powerful resource to help our diaspora.
I'll jump
I guess I'll go
in.
first.
You got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
You got it.
Instagram, TikTok, and my website, Paid Therapist Bestie. Very simple.
Nice.
I'm on all socials, Les Renee, LESRENA. You can also find me under Lesley Renee Scott. Just put in Les, Yapper, social work. I'm a pop up. So I'm looking forward to connecting with everybody.
Kurt Lamarr. You can just Google Kurt Lamarr. You'll see this guy come up, actor Kurt Lamarr, with this bright orange sweatsuit on. Right. Kurt Lamarr on all platforms.
So my name is different. It's French, but the beauty in it also, if you put Erlange Elisme, you will not find another person like that. So I'm on LinkedIn. I am on YouTube. I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram also, Elisme Consulting Services.
And you can find me everywhere. I'm the Ebenezer. I'm red, so you'll recognize me for sure.
I love that. I'm Rachel J, the culture coach on LinkedIn. So if you're a leader or an organization looking to interrogate your culture so you can reach external impact, you can find me there. But I'm also the founder of Half Hood, Half Holistic. You can find us on all social media platforms, including TikTok, apparently, at Half Hood, Half Holistic. People can book consultations for coaching, see our upcoming events, and retreats on halfhoodhalfholistic.com. Thank you for having me.
Best place to reach me is our website, becominginstitute.ca. But you can also find me on LinkedIn as well. Just look for Joan Samuels-Dennis.
Yes. And you all can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Corporal Deonte Carter on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, as Ante Cartier. I am a poet as well. So the Poetic Odyssey of Ante Cartier, Dr. Ante Cartier, / Dr. Handsome. And yeah, going to be doing a digital magazine. I'm going to change the name. So it's going to be Black Brilliance, to just celebrate phenomenal leaders that are in this room today, that are just all over the globe, that embody Black brilliance, embodies Black excellence. It's something that, the Urban League is green lighting. And I also wanted to say that if anyone has any comments or topics, suggestions, podcasts at BMHM.org. We are happy to hear suggestions for Black Mental Health Matters. And lastly, I want to give condolences to Dr. Jason Ardre, a professor, unfortunately, that is no longer with us. He was one of the first Black autistic professors, and for him to be, I have two sons that are on the spectrum, and I said, he's doing it, you all can too. So major condolences to Jason Ardre's family. It broke my heart when I seen the news. Be well, everyone. And until next time, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. James Baldwin said it best. You all enjoy and cherish the rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.